This episode was brought to you by Alpha House of Fashion, specialists in African and English wear, wedding gowns, corporate wear, embroidery designs and logos. Baseline Media Intellects, bringing your vision to life with lighting, sound and rigging, all to a professional degree. And Batched by ZAHRA, generous servings of authentic Pakistani burfis, brownies and bakes at an unbeatable price. Enjoy.
إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباد الله الذين ارتضى ومن بهداه من اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم. Ladies, gentlemen, brothers, sisters, welcome to yet another episode of Botswana's first Muslim podcast, the Scholar and the Student podcast. I am your host, Mostakim Habib al-Maliki, aka Mos. We've got something interesting lined up for you today in the fact that I usually start off hyping up my guest, giving them a bit of an intro and all that kind of stuff. Today's one is interesting because I don't actually know too much about this brother, although we have spoken on Instagram and other forms of social media before. This is as much an adventure for me as it is for the viewer and for the listener. So I really think it's going to be amazing to discover our brother who's with us today and see what lessons we can derive from him, his story, his journey, and everything that he's going on. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce and welcome to Botswana for the first time virtually, all the way from Canada. We've got a lot of guests from there. I think this is our fourth guest from Canada. Brother Arslan Mirza, assalamu alaikum, bro. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. Absolute honor. Like you said, guests, they don't know much about me. I don't know much about you too, to be honest. I just came across a couple of your podcasts via Instagram. I'm like, okay, he seems like a cool guy. Has a lot to say. So yeah, we'll take it from here. We'll speak. I hope we have a fruitful discussion, inshallah, and we can learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's as much an adventure for us and for you. I mean, my viewers are also getting to learn about you. I'm doing the same thing. It's like a three-way sort of mishmash of all these sorts of energies coming together. So it's really interesting and really exciting. I really am looking forward to what we can unearth. But let's start all the way from this. Brother Arslan Mirza, what is your life story? Who is Arslan Mirza? And if you were to give us your life story, what would it be? Or if you were writing your autobiography, how would it start off?
Okay, so Bismillah. Like you said, Arslan Mirza, I'm from Toronto, Canada, age 26. If I were to explain my life, it's just, it's a journey, it's a process. You know, it's a process from Allah to Allah. I feel like the stage I am in life right now, I'm trying to acquire this sense of poise and equanimity, tranquility in my own life. You know, I've had, like anyone else, I've had highs and lows, in terms of faith, in terms of career, in terms of wealth and health. And, you know, we just start with Alhamdulillah always. I'm extremely grateful. So yeah, I have my own career. Don't really want to go into that too much on podcasts, but I have, Alhamdulillah, I have my own career. I'm working. On the side, I love writing poetry. I love just studying Islam. I'm involved in the charitable sector as well. I'm doing a lot of work for the homeless, alhamdulillah, at the moment. I will be posting that on my Instagram, say 2 to 3 weeks from now. And brother, I will let you know. I'll tag you in it. I'll let you know what I'm doing. But yeah, that's the purpose. We're just trying to spread some positivity. Just trying to do some good, accomplish some good in this limited lifespan we have.
Amazing. And it's always very inspiring to hear when someone who is as young as yourself, and I can say that because I'm just a bit older than you by a year about. So, okay, we're the same age, but still someone who is clearly not very old, but having this drive and this passion to do things for people who are less fortunate, or just having that, you know, when someone has passion, when someone really wants to do something and achieve something in life, you can even see it in their eyes and in their faces almost. And it's an infectious sort of energy. which even virtually we can feed off of. And I really liked everything that you've said so far in terms of your career. It's a really crazy world out there, but we got to do what we can to make ourselves stable and the ones we love, alhamdulillah. So I guess I'll also sort of mirror everything that you've said, since you don't know too much about me except from a couple of clips on Instagram that you've seen of my various podcasts and so on and so forth. So yeah, when I was born, my full name was Muhammad Mostakim ibn Muhammad Ijaz Habib. I'm not making that up. That was a thing on my birth certificate, which I don't know where it is, but my OG birth certificate, the manual one, had that whole thing in it. And then in 2000, when Botswana switched over to electronic birth certificates, my parents were like, "No, that's just too long. Just shorten it to like Mustaqim Habib." So that was my name. These days, I add al-Maliki at the end because I have undertaken this course of studying traditional Islam, and I have chosen for myself the school of Medina, aka the madhab that comes down to us from primarily, I guess you could say, Imam Malik bin Anas radiallahu anh, and that's what I identify as, a Maliki. My teachers are Maliki, many of them, particularly Sidi Iqbal, whom inshallah I will get on this podcast as well. I'd really love to have him over, inshallah. So that's about me. I studied law in university and I'm currently practicing. Inshallah, after January, I will be completing what we call a pupillage. And after that, I get my full license. I'll be basically a full-on lawyer, so to speak, in layman's terms. Inshallah. And on the side, I decided to speak about pertinent issues. And there's a whole origin story we can do just about the podcast on its own. But I started this podcast called The Scholar and the Student. Alhamdulillah, I've had many diverse people speak on it, people who are Muslim, non-Muslim. I've had musicians such as Celt Islam, my brother, whom I still have contact with. You know, he played at Glastonbury, so goes to show how big of a name he is, alhamdulillah. I've had brother Talib Razi, and I've seen that, I don't know if you like follow him as well, but he's also, I mean, him and I interact.
Sorry, what's his name?
Talib Razi, and he was on my podcast as well. Yeah, he was on the first episode of season 3. He's a musician and an author and doing great things, alhamdulillah. So this is the type of vibe I want to give off in this podcast, getting Muslims of different walks of life to come and share their stories so that other people may get inspired and unearth this thing that we call wisdom. Because I always go back to that hadith of the Prophet, the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that wisdom is the lost property of the believer. So wherever you find wisdom, you take it and you cling on to it. And it doesn't matter if even the person who's saying it is maybe a non-Muslim or he has said 99 things that you disagree with. This thing that he has said that contains wisdom is something you latch onto. And that's what I'm trying to get at with this podcast, so to speak. And, I made a lot of interesting people on the way, such as yourself, alhamdulillah. And that's how we got started on this whole thing. So I hope we're now on the same page in terms of introductions. And I just wanted to go back to your introduction when you talked about poetry. Did you ever, since we've been talking and you clearly, like myself, are of something of a South Asian background as well, did you ever get told when you were young that stuff like poetry, stuff like music, okay, music is a bit contentious because then the halal haram thing comes in, but poetry, for example, poetry is not something that you should spend too much time on because it's not a viable career option, or you should focus on something like doctor, lawyer. The joke amongst Desi families is that it's either doctor or engineer, but alhamdulillah, I kind of broke that, whatever it is, curse or whatever. But did you ever get told that when you were growing up? And what was your response? How did you keep writing poetry in that sort of environment? Did that shape your poetry?
So first of all, thank you for the introduction of yourself. It's actually I'd like to give you a compliment. You speak with a lot of brevity and clarity. The way you communicate, it's really good. So I just want to say mashallah to that. So poetry, I used to write a lot of rap when I was younger. Just the environment that I was part of, the culture, I wrote a lot of rap. So of course I got, as you can imagine, a lot of backlash for that. But I've never seen it as as a career. It was always kind of a hobby, and I think because of that, I didn't get as much backlash as I would have gotten if I did pursue it as a career. So yeah, I mean, even till this day, if I do write, I don't think I would say like our elders really take it seriously. It's like whatever, he likes writing, you know. But fortunately, I like to do it out of my own volition, just for my own peace, you know. I like to express my ideas, put it on paper. So I have no complaints on that end. I like writing it. Um, I'm not too too public with it. Maybe one day I'll be more public with my writing. I think I write some pretty good work. But the day I feel more comfortable with sharing it, I think people will appreciate it. That's how I feel though, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's interesting. Shukran for the compliment, by the way, although I massively disagree. I think I've got a bit of a tendency to ramble
Mm,
on, because once I
mm,
start talking about something, if I get passionate about it, I just keep going on and on because it's so addicting in a way. But I like the fact that you use
mm,
poetry as a sort of, in a way, a self-reflective tool. And it's interesting you talked about rap and music.
mm,
Perhaps you alluded to a bit when you were talking about rap, because I think it's
mm,
trite to avid listeners and viewers of my podcast right now. I come from the punk scene. I used to be a massive
mm.
punk rocker when I was young. Well, I guess I
Oh,
still am, but yeah, so punk music really drives me until this day. I did take a
mm,
bit of a hiatus from music in general. So, you know, the whole
mm.
music is haram thing. I was in that camp for almost a decade. I think almost 7 years. I never bothered to listen to music. And
Brother, that makes two of us, man.
oh wow, alhamdulillah, kindred spirits everywhere, mashallah. So yeah, I
Mm,
didn't listen to any music, but there was always poetry. There was always room for nasheeds and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess for me, it's a bit different with music though, because when I was young, when I was a teenager, like, you do want to be the best guitarist in the world. You do want to be the best rock star ever. Like you do want to be on MTV with your heroes and all that kind of stuff. As I grew up, that kind of phased away. I mean, I still appreciate music. I appreciate the art form. And what my hiatus from
mm,
music allowed me to do is that previously, when I was a teen, like if it wasn't rock, any type of rock, whether it's rock or metal, punk, whatever you have it, if it wasn't that, then I wouldn't listen to it. But after having that
mm,
hiatus from music, I'm able to appreciate something like traditional Ethiopian music, which is, well, I guess it's got guitars in it, but it's still not rock. You wouldn't classify it as that. If
mm,
anything, it falls under the umbrella of world music. Now, you could say that's
mm,
just me mellowing it with age, but I'd like to think that
mm,
I actually want to talk to a couple of ulama, like scholars of Islam, about this. I think that halal and haram aside, I think what music does is that whatever you have inside of you, it kind of brings it forward, brings it to the fore. So
mm,
if you're like really angry for whatever reason, you listen to some music and then you feel more angry. So today, what reaction that would elicit in me is that, why am I angry? Like, what happened to me today? Or am I holding on to something I shouldn't be? And I think
mm,
now, listening to music for me, because I've had that time to mature and sort of introspect and know what my values are, I think when music, whatever music I'm listening to, whatever emotion it brings to the core of me, whatever it brings forward, I think it allows me to sort of identify something that's going right or something that's going wrong in life and then take steps
mm.
accordingly to sort of rectify it. Before we go anywhere, I know this is divergent, but I don't know what your take is on that, since you also had a hiatus from music but decided to start listening to it again. So, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so likewise, as you know, I had a similar experience. I had a bit of a hiatus from music, just because of the whole halal haram thing. Gradually, I've come back to listening to music. Primarily, I use it as a force of good. Whether generally it's when I go to the gym, I need a pump, or if I have a long day at work and just put something on the radio, relax and drive home. Um, you know, my take on it, it's like to each its own. You know, if you are of the viewpoint that something that we shouldn't be doing, then don't listen to it, right? Um, for me, it's like if you can derive benefit from it, you know, because it's a tool, right? It can have it has negatives to it, especially with today's pop culture. There's a lot of bad music out there, you know. Just spreading negative messages. Um, but for me, it's like I like to, like you said, it brings out the essence of your soul. You know, you can have sometimes you're unable to explain things, unable to express your true emotions, and you're by yourself. You're just listening to something really soulful, something that really hits your soul. You know, and it's beautiful. Like I feel like the vast majority of times I actually listen to music. It brings me closer to Allah. So you know, I don't see no harm in that, and I only see benefit. But no, I'm not gonna preach. I'm just gonna do my own thing, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you, bro. I mean, I think I've got a similar sort of stand when it comes to that, in the sense that for me, you see, even when I had my hiatus from music, I knew there were plenty of prominent ulama, prominent scholars such as
Mm,
Imam Suhaib Webb. Now, I know he gets his share of flack, but yeah,
mm,
he has been preaching for a very long time, much to the chagrin of practically everyone. You know that there's nothing wrong
mm,
with music and everything because he also comes
mm,
from that background. So even during my
mm.
hiatus, I always respected people like Imam Suhaib Webb. I'm gonna get blacklisted for this next one. People like Mufti Abu Layth, and
Of
many
course.
other, yeah, and many other scholars who said that music was halal. I just didn't want to listen to it myself. But then
Mm,
I guess as time went on, other things happened in my life as well. But I guess I started asking myself the question, like, you don't believe, this is me talking to myself, you don't believe it's haram for them because they've justified their standpoint, right? From authentic sources. It's not just a matter of, I want it to be halal, so it's halal. No, they have
yeah,
evidence for their standpoint. So,
yeah.
what is this sort of thing that you're trying to rationalize with yourself that, hey, it's halal for others, but not halal for you? What is that
Mm,
achieving? I mean, in some cases that's great, like for example, maybe a very sort of silly example or something that doesn't scratch the surface, but I guess I still am wishy-washy about it, but on a keto diet, so I would,
yeah.
yeah, forcefully or conscientiously avoid carbs. Not that rice is haram or
Mm,
bread is haram. It's just I was
mm,
I was following a certain regimen, and for that
mm,
to take effect, I had to stay away from carbs. So that had a benefit to it. But then when I looked into the whole thing of music, I'm like, wait, what benefit am I really getting? Because it's
mm.
funny, but have you heard of Sheikh Muhammad Nidami? He's from the UK.
I've heard about him. I haven't watched too much into him though, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, inshallah, I have extended my invite to him to come onto this podcast as well. So stay tuned for that. So one of his videos
Inshallah.
is actually quite funny. So when he was talking about nasheeds, the whole vocals only nasheeds, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a very, how should I say, provocative sort of manner of speaking sometimes, in the sense that he said
Mm,
that all the vocal melodies or whatever background, whatever it's called that you're putting into the nasheed is still music. The fact that it doesn't have
mm,
an instrument doesn't negate the fact that
yeah.
it's music. Yeah, so I found that interesting in the fact that he had that to say about nasheeds. And also, I found it interesting that I was making this haram for myself to no good end, knowing full well that I'm an artistic person and that's going to come out whether it's through
Mm,
writing prose or writing poetry or other forms of art. So I didn't really, at
mm,
the end of the day, find a benefit to me restraining myself from music and at the same time knowing full well that I don't believe it to be haram. So what am I really
mm,
doing here? Am I just following the crowd?
yeah.
So
Mm,
that was a sort of eureka moment or an epiphany for me when it came to music. And so I
mm,
gradually worked my way back. It felt a bit weird listening to it at first because all these pent up emotions after years of not listening to it were sort of coming out, and I just felt weird. That's the only word I can think of to describe that. But ultimately, got to the point where I sort of, yeah, carved out a niche for myself, if I can.
uh-huh.
In the fact that I still listen to punk music, I still listen to metal, but I also found a lot of interesting Japanese music, a lot of what Brother Talib Razi produces as well. I've listened to practically all of he's got an African inspired album and he's got a Celtic inspired album as well. So definitely
Interesting.
gems that we should all check out. So
Mm,
yeah, interesting discussion we're having about music as always. I think that's one of the topics that is sort of a mainstay on my podcast, for better or for worse, in that, you know, I always speak to people about their interests in music and, you know, what music means to them. And sometimes it's a musician themselves that I'm interviewing. So it's always interesting to see how these different these elements come together and allow us to experience sound, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Experience this in a way that words can fail to describe sometimes. And everyone's got their own take on what a song means. And I'm not just talking about lyrics, but even in terms of musicality and all those amazing things. So yeah, amazing discussion about music. So yeah, my question was going to be, what sorts of music are you usually listening to then, before we go back to the whole poetry thing? What genres are you really into, and which artists, so to speak, really tickle your fancy these days? You can even give us your whole Spotify Wrapped if you want to.
So, you know, I don't have a specific, I would say, genre that I stick to always. You know, I feel like I have like a musical soul, musical ear, I'd say. So whatever, you know, whatever I'm feeling, I fancy in that moment, that's what I'm listening to. Although as of recent, I have been listening to a lot of like a lot of classical R&B, 90s, current contemporary, just hip hop, a lot of bassy music. Like I said, mostly I'm at the gym, right? So I just need a little pump. I need something to. But yeah, if I'm in the mood, I'll listen to Quali. You know, Quali. I can't go wrong with Quali. Yeah, that's about it, man. Whatever, you know, whatever I'm feeling in the moment. To be honest, I haven't listened to a lot of punk metal in my life. I haven't been maybe I'm just not a fan, or I just haven't given it a chance. But yeah, so it's mostly R&B, hip hop, some Bollywood music, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about punk and metal music, to wrap this up, and one of my other fellow punk heads or metal heads was telling me as well, is that these genres are kind of on the fringes of society, on the edges of society. So it's not, okay, maybe nowadays, or maybe in the early 2000s with your Blink 182s and the Paramores and the Fall Out Boys, there was a little bit of a mainstream appeal. But generally speaking, there isn't so much of a mainstream appeal, because it really, when it had its inception, was appealing to people at the edges of society who weren't happy with the way things were done. So it's totally understandable. And I definitely am not offended. I'm not 15 years old anymore to be offended that you don't listen to my music.
You know what it is? So for me, I feel like music actually like affects me, you know? So when I'm listening to something, the way the music's composed, it'll affect me. Like if I'm listening to something, something uplifting, something that's relaxing, it affects me directly, you know? That's why I like to listen to some more chilled out stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, something just to uplift the mood. So maybe that's why I don't listen to like metal stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there is an element of joy in, like, you get what you call pop punk, which is, I mean, it's still it's still within the punk realm, I would say, but more on the uplifty, cheery sort of, and sometimes summer party sort of vibe, which interesting. That's actually happening outside right now because it's summer where I am, and it's Christmas next weekend. So this is probably just going to come out on Christmas for the rest of you viewers. So maybe they're listening to this at a summer party, in which case you're really weird.
So,
but
Botswana, it doesn't get colder, right? Like winter generally.
It actually does. It gets pretty damn cold. Well, at least I'd like to think it gets pretty damn cold. It's just that our seasons are the inverse of yours. So when it's summer for you, it's winter for us. Yeah. Since we're in the southern hemisphere, so it's always the opposite. And right now, you guys are coming out of what you call fall and going into winter. I don't know. I'm guessing it's snowing where you are.
It's snowing. Yeah, it's snowing.
Yeah. It doesn't snow around here, but yeah. So we have just been getting a lot of rains this past few weeks, and it gets pretty hot as well. The fan is actually on at the back, so that's, if you see my hair flying at the back every now and again, it's because that fan just keeps stinging. So yeah, amazing discussion we had about music. I really enjoyed it in every aspect. Now, coming back to poetry, since you've alluded to your South Asian background a little bit. Do you only write poetry in English, or have you tried in other languages, Urdu, for example?
So I listen to a lot of Urdu poetry. However, I don't think I have the tools, the appropriate lexicon. My diction isn't up to par. I can't write good poetry. I feel like I can write it, but it'll be an injustice to all the great Urdu poetry out there. You know? So I'm gonna stick in my lane. I'm gonna stick to English. So yeah,
Yeah,
primarily I write in English. Yeah.
I hear you. But have you heard of Wali Shah? He's from Canada as well.
Wali Shah, yeah, no, Wali Shah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's also of a Pakistani sort of background, and he writes mostly in English. But recently, and I mean like literally this year, which is about to end, he did write something in Urdu, and it was actually quite good. I mean, no offense to
Mhm.
Wali if he's watching this, but I wouldn't put it on the level of someone like John Elia or Mirza Ghalib or any of those greats, the
No,
dons. No, but it was pretty damn
yeah.
good. I mean, I was surprised because um, I've got something of a mixed background myself, but also hailing somewhat from the Southeast Asian region, if you will. So
Hmm.
I can speak Urdu, but then I can even, I was at a wedding and I had to recite Urdu poetry. Not had to, I just decided I would because it sounded cool.
Mm.
So I can do that, but telling me to compose my own, that's going to take quite some work, I would say. So that's
You
interesting.
know, it's not on the level like you said of like these great poets, but it resonates with the local young Pakistani guys, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
most of us aren't so affluent in Urdu, anyways. So just
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
something like that, it's pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so are you feeling confident to give us a little maybe tease of something you've composed, or would you like to save that for the end, which I usually allow artists to do on this
Hmm.
platform?
Yeah. I'll muster something up towards the end. I
Okay.
got to think about what I want to share. You know.
All right. No, interesting. So yeah, viewers,
Hmm.
you've got a hook now, so stay on until the end.
There we go.
And yeah, so what are some of the subjects that you tackle in your poetry? Is it just about, I don't know, some girl dumped me, or is it something beyond that? Deeper subjects, for example, contemplating
Um.
why we are here.
So in my early career, it was a lot of. I used to write rap, right? So we had a lot of profanity, a lot of things that don't really, you talk about a lifestyle that you don't really live. So
Mm.
I wrote like I wrote some really fascinating things, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, how does this accurately reflect my life? It did not. So I just kind of pushed that to the side. Um, and then I started writing poetry about things. This very very soulful things, about life, about love, about experiences. However, interesting enough, when if you do get a chance to hear my poetry, um, you'll notice elements of a rap in there, because yes, it is poetry, but it also rhymes. It has a rhyming flow to it. So it's like two worlds combined. You can see my background with hip hop rap combined with like contemporary poetry. So it's nice. It's a wide variety, man. Sometimes I talk about politics, sometimes I talk about life, love, friendships, experiences. So yeah, whatever's in my mind, in my heart at the moment, that's what I write about.
Wow, that's really profound, beautiful, and interesting. And you alluded to something that I'm also sort of bringing back to the fore from my past right now, which is how in your current writings you can still see an influence of stuff that really was your bread and butter or your life really in the past. It's interesting because
Mm.
I recently, I don't think it's in this room though, I found one of my old journals. It's actually, I used to write songs on that. Well, I guess it's practically poetry since I never put them to music. I never composed any music to go with them, but I had some
Mm.
lyrics there and I read some of them and I'm like, how did a 15-year-old come up with this? Because some of it
Mm.
is quite deep and other things are more in line with what I would say today in terms of everything that I've experienced and everything that I have grown into. For example, this is a sort of a weird example, but I really follow. Um, I don't know if you've heard of Momodou Tal, the Malcolm Effect. Like I adore Momodou, and
Actually, I don't know that. No.
Okay, well, you're free to check it out. So I adore Momodu and everything that he's doing. And in fact, if people ask me what is one podcast you should listen to, I wouldn't even say mine. Like I just say, go listen to the Malcolm Effect. I don't care if you never check mine out, but if you listen to the Malcolm Effect by Momodu Tal, then yeah, inshallah, you'll be set straight. So Momodu is really anti-capitalist and against oppression, and obviously it's understandable coming from him being of Gambian origin and growing up in the UK and experiencing and seeing firsthand all the injustices that people who are black have had to experience in the hands of this brutal system called capitalism. So I don't blame him. And it's interesting, I really fall in line with that sort of stuff now when I look at my journals, and it's a school book literally. So I don't know how school books are in Canada. So you've got a section that says name, subject, and then it says class, which is supposed to be like what grade are you in. I guess that's the word you guys use. So I took a weird spin on that. I'm like, class equals working, like working class. So although that may not have been exactly true, but it's interesting that sort of mindset really propelled me into what I am today, even though I may not think about it as explicitly. So I'm guessing you don't really have any children, but I was going to jump off to this question. Looking at our experiences, where we were and where we are today, and how today we are in this sort of position where, yes, we've left a lot of those things in the past, like you mentioned, profanity and that whole lifestyle of a rapper that you don't really want to emulate anymore. But there are still gems you can pick from there. So inshallah, when we do have children, when the next generation comes along, what are some of the advices that you'd give them to sort of prevent them from falling into the same pitfalls? Or how would you raise your children in general? I mean, I'm guessing you're not interested in the whole iron fist, my way or the highway thing, but what are some sort of techniques that you would use?
First and foremost, you got to understand that they're a different generation, Same way of how we differ from our parents, right? The same way we're going to differ from our children as well. So there's a generational gap, and from what I can assume, I don't have children, but when I do have children, there's going to be a generational gap, and we need to respect that. But there's a fine balance you want to strike between ingraining your values into the like your values as a Muslim father, what it means to especially if I'm talking about if I had a son. From my experiences, I can let him know what it means to be a man, right? You're gonna have hardships. It's a lifelong journey, That's what I've learned. It's a lifelong struggle. It's day to day. You just want to keep pushing. So I think one thing that we could really implement into teaching our children is, at least we should have it in the back of our minds as like a backdrop, that most children learn through introjection. They learn through what they see, right? You can tell them whatever. You can tell them, okay, you got to do this. You got to believe in Islam. You got to do this. They're going to learn from what they see, from how you react to certain situations. Say something comes up, you're in traffic, someone cuts you off. How do you react, right? Are you flipping them off? Are you getting angry? Or are you relaxed, right? So you lose your job and your kids are in the same room as you. How do you react, right? Do you lose yourself? Do you start getting sad? Do you start getting angry? So these things are important to realize that kids learn from what they see. I can see it in my nieces and nephews today. How I react to certain situations is how they react, and it's a scary thing, but at the same time, it's a very powerful thing. Like how much of a positive impact you can have on young kids. Like advice I give to my children, I give them advice just based on the scenario, right? Dealing with like a guy, I could tell them how to deal with a woman. I have a lot of experience. I could save them a lot of headache, I can teach them how to have self-value, career path. I can, one big thing for me is like, I feel like every child has a gift, right? And sometimes especially Desi households, how we raise our children, it's not in the line to the gift that they have. Some people have an artistic mind. Some people have an engineer's mind. Some people have we have a lot of value in what we in our beings, and I think as our younger generation, we really need to um, put some importance on, okay, what is my child's gift? How can I direct them into that field? Um, Sometimes at the same time, sometimes when um, you try to have your hand on everything, you try to direct a child's life. It has an adverse, a negative impact. At least from what I've noticed, some children, they're just better, just let them be, just let them be, especially in the early stages. They're just like they're brought into this wonderful life knowing nothing, right? Just let them be for a while. Let's let them enjoy life, because as adults, we crave what children have, right? They're happy, they laugh every day, they're in a different world. So I feel like we try to take them out of that world way too quickly, you know? So let them be. We want to, obviously, you want to nurture them, you want to protect them. Let them be. Instill your values, because we could talk about this a lot, but especially in the West, there's a lot of garbage that they're teaching them in schools, that they're learning from TV. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I know people nowadays. I don't know how it is in Botswana, but people are contemplating taking their kids out of public schools, right? Going to private school, going to Islamic school, raising them at home, homeschooling. So it's a lot to look at. But again, I'm not speaking from much experience. I don't have kids of my own, so we'll see where I'm at once I do get children, inshallah.
Care to savor some authentic Pakistani dessert? Fancy some brownies? Need a specialized package for a special event? Batch by ZAHRA has got you covered. Call or WhatsApp 74755 and get your batch now. A generous helping at an absolutely unbeatable price. Attested to be absolutely tasty by us here at The Scholar and the Student. Alright.
May Allah make that a very fruitful journey, beautiful journey for yourself and your upcoming family, inshallah. So, okay, there are a couple of things I'd like to pick out from your statements there. First of them would be, you're alluding to, okay, public schools in Botswana are not like what you see in Canada or the United States. Public schools, I would say, generally speaking, are a lot more tame when it comes to that sort of thing. There are some private schools where I wouldn't say that thing is proselytized. We're talking about gender roles here, right? And the whole sexuality thing. It's not proselytized, but there are some students who may, for example, want to be gender fluid or whatever. So there isn't such a rule that says you can't do such a thing. So that's private schools, I guess. It's not such a big issue here in Botswana. But I guess one thing we could have a discussion on as people, as men right here, Muslim men here, is that what does masculinity mean? Because the reason why I'm asking that question is, yes, this conversation needs to happen, but I feel that the way the West is trying to steer it in, as in, yes, you've got one camp that is on the extreme left, if you will, and then you've got the other camp which is coming from the extreme right. But then their conceptions of masculinity might not exactly be in line with our values or our religion. For example, if you're teaching men that they cannot cry, for example, but brother, we've got narrations that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, whom according to us as Muslims is the best of all men, the best of all creation. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cried at many stages. For example, when his son Ibrahim died and passed away. So we've got instances of the Prophet, peace be upon him, openly shedding tears. So then you come with this, no, men must always have this strong facade, looking like all macho and all that kind of stuff. So where do we fit in with our teachings of masculinity, if you can even call it that? Because it's definitely, as we can see from this discussion, it doesn't fit that side or this side.
That's a valid point you brought up, and I think more Muslims need to realize that first and foremost, our example that we follow is the example of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, you know, I feel like there has been a shift there's a pendulum shift. It's swinging the other direction in that I feel like, especially where we are from, the West, things were leading far left, really far left. And I feel like people, at least the men, there's this sense of people getting fed up with, with feminism, LGBTQ, all that stuff. So it's kind of shifted back into, okay, what does it mean to be a man, right? And alongside that, you have people who've gone far right now, who've taken it to, excuse me, taking it to the far extreme. So as Muslims, we need to see, okay, where do we stand in all this, you know? I can see the value in a lot of these influencers, like, who are talking about what it means to be a man, having self-value, having your own goals in life. Like, I see a lot of validity in that, right? So, because men are, I'm gonna be honest with you, men, especially like my age group, I see a lot of men suffering, man. They're depressed, they're down, they don't have stuff going their way. And a lot of this stems from the issue, like, as superficial as it seems, it's from women, their inability to get the woman that they desire, right? And from my experiences, what I usually tell my anyone who I come across, I'm like, first and foremost, why is the woman your first goal in life? As a man, you should have numerous goals. You should have aspirations. You should be developing yourself. You should be developing a connection between you and God, first and foremost. With that, all the women that you once desired, they'll come to you naturally. That's how this world works. The more you level yourself up, you elevate, people are attracted to you, right? I'm not the life coach. I'm just speaking from my own experience. You know, you chase a butterfly, it'll fly away, you know? So, yeah, I'm really big into this masculinity stuff, as you can probably tell. Because it affects us, man. People are... So I can see the benefits of this movement, this whole masculinity macho thing. I can see the benefits of it. But at the same time, we need to take it with a grain of salt, because we shouldn't forget the essence of our religion and what examples were set forth before us by our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, by the Sahaba. You know, because we are human at the end of the day. We feel grief. You know, we feel grief. Nothing wrong with crying. Nothing wrong with showing emotion. But if you want to talk about the psychological effects of this, I can see why a lot of life coaches or a lot of these pickup artists, why they would say not to show vulnerability when speaking to a female. I've experienced it myself. I know why they say that, because intrinsically, especially so we're talking about, if say as a man you're talking to a female, you're in the early stages of a relationship, you're not married, you know, you haven't developed that deep love for one another. I could see why you'd want to hide vulnerability, because in the courting stage, right, women, generally speaking, they're attracted to someone who can protect, who can provide, who can show strength in times where the woman is weak. They can show strength, they can take control, and they can make them feel safe. That's what women desire. It's, in the essence, they want to feel safe, they want to feel protected. That's my provider. No matter what happens, if shit hits the fan, he's going to take care of me, right? But if you were to start expressing, oh, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling down, I've been feeling sad lately, yeah, they'll show you comfort in the time, but in the back of their mind, they're like, you know what? They're going to be looking for someone better. Like, hey, this guy's showing signs of weakness. In the long run, can he really take care of me, right? Because I can't take care of him. He's the man in the relationship. So it's a tough line to step on. But it's a lot of, I feel like our younger generation, the guys, you really need to let them know what it is to be a man, you know, in terms of taking care of their own mental health, in terms of building quality lives. You know, the way I see it, I'm a very traditional guy, to be honest. The way I've always seen it is like, build your own castle. then allow a woman to come into the castle. She can decorate it. She can do what she wants to uplift you, support you. But you need to build your own castle. You know, you need to get your own shit going before you start chasing after these women. Because especially with social media, man, it's such a it affected us so bad. Because as a guy, you go on social media, you see all these girls. These guys DM, like there's guys out there who DM hundreds of girls on a daily basis, and they get no response. They'll get like 2% response. Imagine what that does to the ego. Imagine what that does to the self-confidence, the self-worth, you know? So you got to be careful, fellas. You got to build yourself up, man. Build yourself up to that level. Keep it, stick to the sunnah. You know, you'll find yourself a beautiful wife. You'll find yourself the partner you've been looking for, but don't compromise on who you are and what values you have, man. People compromise way too easily. Yeah, that's my 2 cents, man. What do you think, man?
Yeah, mashallah. I mean, I'm understanding the whole point of when it comes to vulnerability, there's a time and a place to show it. Like, I've also been through a lot of crap in my life, but I understand, for example, this session is not for me to be crying to you, Brother Arslan, oh, that guy did this to me and that guy did that to me. If I was talking to my sister, for example, or my therapist or my parents about something, then in that situation, you know, I can be vulnerable. I can say, like, this really made me feel a certain type of way and so on and so forth. But as you said, if you're in the courting stage, the dynamics are shifted. It's a whole different ball game, because your objective in that arena, so to speak, is different. You're trying to show her that you are the one that you can provide and so on and so forth. And the interesting part that you mentioned, or that I would like to interject, is that it's not just about women. It can apply to friends as well. We're talking about as guys, like other guys you hang out with or whatever the case may be. In fact, there's an Urdu poem, I forgot who wrote it, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it goes something like this: "Main chalta chalta raha aur phir ban gaya karwa." That I just kept moving. I just kept moving, and after a while I looked back and I saw that it's a whole caravan going. So yeah, sometimes you just got to go your own way and do your own thing, do your own self-improvement. And that's one thing that I learned during the pandemic, because I had a lot of time to do a lot of crap, and that's practically when this podcast also bloomed. And I guess it's my self-improvement project in a way. So yeah, it was really lonely for a while, not just because we were in lockdown, but no one was really tuning in, no one really cared about it. But after a while, you've got these avid listeners, you've got people messaging me on Instagram and so forth, that you've got yourself asking to come on and all these interesting things. So it's not just about women, but I think it's a life principle in general that sometimes you just got to do your own thing, man. And you shouldn't change yourself just to fit into somebody else's standards and lose yourself along the way, because how happy is that going to make you at the end of the day? And more importantly, if you're losing your connection to Allah in that stage, so are you going to be in a position to say that you are ready to meet Allah? That's really something that you have to think about. So
absolutely, man. And you know, it's one of the most crucial things about life is you really need to, first of all, you need self-value, but alongside that, you need passion. You need passion for things, man. That's what keeps us moving. That's what keeps us growing. There's nothing in this life like having a passion for something. And like I said earlier, we're all unique in our own ways. And if you have a passion and you stick to it and you work towards it and you build on it every day, there's nothing in the world that can compare to that feeling, you know?
MashaAllah. Absolutely, absolutely, bro. So I've got, I can think of 2 more questions for you, but they're kind of interrelated. So I guess I'll kind of ask them at the same time. So first of all, Brother Arslan, what is it about my platform in particular that really sort of made you want to come on? Or you, at the beginning, you said you thought that I was a cool guy. So what was it really that I was doing right, or what was it that I was doing wrong that really piqued your interest? And the second part was basically, this is the part of the podcast where I hand it over to you to ask me any other questions. So go ahead and do that, bro.
Sure. Okay. So I watched a few snippets from your channel. I don't even remember how I came across your channel. Must have been Mufti or something, to be honest. But I just like the free flowing aspect of your channel. It was like, you seem like a very very open-minded person, you know. and it's hard to come across such people, especially in the Muslim community sometimes. So I think that's the main thing. Like, you seem like a very open-minded, chill, mellow dude, and I felt like I could speak to you about whatever's on my mind without any judgment, without any restriction. So yeah, that's why I chose to come on. And what was the second question? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you for the commendation. I guess that's not what you usually expect from some punk metal dude who actually doubles up to be a lawyer at the same time. Someone who's like, okay, open-minded, I guess, because that's practically our degree. You always have to balance different aspects of the law. Is this lawful or is that lawful? And sometimes there isn't a right answer. So, okay, that I get. In terms of mellow, maybe that's just me, but shukran for the commendation. The second question, it's not a question. I was basically handing it over to you to ask me anything and everything that you want to know about me, my platform, Botswana, and I'll do the best I can to answer. It can even be a series of questions, time permitting.
Sure. So do you have let's see. Do you have any interest in any form of other like philosophy, philosophers? Do you have any like anything that comes to mind that interests you? Maybe other areas of politics or gender identity, feminism. I told you earlier that I like Greek philosophy, maybe that or anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. So philosophy, I'm not so what you call enthusiastic to admit that I haven't studied as much of it as I'd like to, or read up on it as much as I'd like to. But during our law degree, we had a subject called, or a module called Jurisprudence, which is something that you must have heard in the Islamic circles as well, or according to Hanafi jurisprudence, or according to Maliki jurisprudence. It literally means the philosophy of law. So when you're looking at the law, what are the lenses that you put on to look at it? So a feminist, for example, will look at the law. We're talking about like first wave feminists, for example, or they'll look at the law, and regardless of what the law says, but they are looking at it from this perspective that it's just there to sort of enhance the patriarchy. And every sort of law that exists is to concretize the position of men and bring down women. That's feminist jurisprudence. You've got Marxist jurisprudence, and you've got a couple of interesting things like there's Dworkin. Dworkin was interesting in the fact that how he looked at the law is that he would literally come up with a fantastical judge, as in he'd make some guy up. His name is Hercules. I'm not making this up. This actually exists. His name's Hercules. He's a perfect judge who is unbiased, and he doesn't have any past records of making bad decisions and stuff like that. And any case that was presented to Dworkin, he would basically put it through that criteria and see what kind of a result he'd get. So you've got stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, philosophy interests me. Like if you give me any treatise or any book on philosophy, I'd gobble it up. But I'm not sure if I am in such a position to have a discussion about, you mentioned Greek philosophy and stuff like that. When it comes to stuff like feminism or political stuff, so much of my political journey is informed, I would say, by, as I mentioned earlier, Mamadou Tall and the Malcolm Effect. Like he's been just an education, literally. And if you disagree, you disagree. But, you know, when it comes to the whole, you see, the thing about people like Mamadou is that he doesn't just gobble up everything that the Democrats have to say, for example. Yes, you can classify him as leftist, but not left in the sense that, you know, he's got this thing of class analysis. And I don't know if I'm going to do justice just describing what he does over here, but I'd say that the reasoning that he gives us is pretty solid. So when it comes to feminism, basically, it depends on what brand of feminism are you really looking at. Is it because there's a difference between people who just hate men for no other reason but the fact that they have male reproductive organs, and there are people who actually have a critique of the system that we have inherited. Like when it comes to CRT, for example, critical race theory, I believe that that sort of thing is valid because we inherited the system of law and everything else from what was a colonial or a slave trading empire, and the kinks in those systems have to be ironed out. So I know there's a whole hullabaloo about CRT and how apparently it's racism or something, but yeah, basically, I don't know if I'm giving it away, but I don't agree with that sort of analysis. I think CRT is
Yeah.
something that is required to iron those kinks out of the system. And I don't know if I'm answering your question in terms of politics in that, short time that have been allocated.
No, it's good. I just wanted to get a sense of where other things that interest you, and you brought up some pretty interesting ideas. Yeah, so there's a lot we can talk about, but you know, I've learned quite a bit about critical race theory and all these things back in my uni days, but I don't. It's not so fresh for me as much as it was back then. So I'll probably stay straight from talking about that. But yeah, I like the point that you brought up about everyone has their own viewpoint, and you should never try to impose it on someone else. I think it's the philosopher Voltaire who said that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will fight to death for your right to say that.
Yeah.
So I think, especially in today's day and age, we should implement that. I feel like we learn more, man. The more you can learn, like in your opening remarks to this podcast, you're talking about how we can learn from people from all stages, all walks of life, all religions, all backgrounds. If you're a sponge, you should always be a sponge in conversation. Like, I've learned so much from you today, even in this past 30, 40 minutes we've been talking. Yeah, it's been nice having a nice conversation so far. I mean, if you have anything else you want to speak about, we can.
Well, there are just so many avenues that we can go to, but I just wanted to sort of, to close off, ask you about this. When we were off air in the beginning, when we were just having a casual discussion, you mentioned you doing a podcast before with your boys. What was that podcast about, and where can we find it?
So you can't find that. It's a little too. We made a couple, and then we're like, this is probably not good for the internet. It was with the boys. It was no filter. You know what I mean? So maybe in the future I'll do it. But we talked about everything, man. We talked about a lot about relationships. Right? I think it's pretty pertinent. It's pretty important to the youngsters. Just relationships, self-value. We talked about having a good relationship with God and what that requires. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about what else we talked about. We talked about various ideas, man, various ideas. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just thinking, man. There's not a lot I can say on here because it's pretty controversial, and I'm trying to upkeep my social image. So
yeah, well, look, we are no.
It's with the boys, man. When you banter with the boys, it's a different thing,
Yeah, absolutely. But we are no stranger to controversy here, the scholar and the student. The stuff that the messages I've gotten, I wish I could show it to you, but my phone's a webcam. Yeah, people messaging me at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me that I'm destroying the unity of the Ummah. Well, yeah, okay, cool. Well, whatever, man. I didn't know I had that much power, but thank you for giving it to me.
You're talking about the unity of them. I feel like at least the energy you bring in here is that you realize, at least you're trying to present it, that we have a beautiful diversity within our religion.
Absolutely.
And I think people should really appreciate that more. There's everyone comes from their own walk of life, man. And sometimes I feel like certain, say for example, you're a Maliki, you associate with the Maliki school, right? The way a certain denomination or a certain madhab complements your life may not complement someone else's life. It's like, let's take for example, say the Salafi movement, right? They're pretty strict, and I could say the reason why, at least that's how they're presented, as like a really strict madhab and whatnot. But something I realized the reason why the Salafi movement was so effective right, was because of their simplicity. The way they presented themselves was Quran, Sunnah. We stick to Quran and Sunnah. So if you see someone who's struggling to have structure in their life, if they were to come across something like this, you could see why they're inclined to go towards that, right? So someone like me, I feel like early on in my journey, I probably was a little more strict with things than I should have been. So I'm in the latter stages of my journey, so that's why I'm a little more open-minded. You know, I realize, you know, we're all humans at the end of the day, and we're striving towards Allah. As long as your niyyah is good and you're sincere and you're always learning, then you should really, you know, you shouldn't constrict yourself in any way. So yeah, that's the vibe I get from this podcast, man. It's like, you know, it's a feel good vibe. It's like, hey, we're all here. Or I mean, I don't know if all your guests are Muslims, but at least for the Muslims that come on, you feel really comfortable speaking about these things, you know.
MashaAllah. Shukran once again for the recommendation. आप बहुत शर्मिंदा करते हैं जनाब. You know, I tend to disagree with my guests when they praise me, but yeah, it's a bit of a difficult situation that you put me in. But yes, I do try to be accommodating of people. If you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see there's a disclaimer, and I think it's on every description of my videos as well, that hosting any person does not necessarily mean a wholehearted endorsement of their views, because I want to have people here from different walks of life and different opinions within reason. I don't want to host a white supremacist, for example, and I don't need to listen to him talking about how he's a superior guy and everyone else deserves to die. I mean, I don't have time for that sort of thing. But within reason, we try to have people from all walks of life. See, if we disagree, let's see how we can come to an answer. Let's see how we can talk it out instead of just canceling people online. Like, yeah, I've probably been canceled as well, but can't take these things to heart. But anyways,
hey, if you haven't been canceled, are you even doing it right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a joke because, you know, in the Maliki Madhab, like when we pray, we don't fold our hands, it's to the sides. So
Sadl,
yeah, Sadl. Nowadays, it's kind of popular, as in more people are aware of it. When my teacher, Sidi Iqbal, when in the 70s or the 80s, when he started praying like that at the masjid, people were like, who's the Shia agent over here? Like, because that's all they knew. So it's become like a joke amongst Malikis. If you haven't been called Shia once in your life, are you even doing it right, man?
Are you even doing it right?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, Brother Arslan, I had an absolute blast speaking to you for the time that we've been allocated together. If you were to give, any parting words to our viewers and listeners, what would they be? And also let us know where we can find you online.
Sure. So likewise, the feeling is mutual. I've had an absolutely amazing opportunity to speak to you. I feel it's pretty awesome, man. You're sitting in Botswana, I'm sitting in Toronto, Canada. We're speaking a lot of similarities, you know. So I feel like sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he brings people together, you know. Like I wouldn't imagine a year ago from now that I'd be speaking to you on this podcast. So I have a poem that kind of, I say, can correlate to that. So I actually wrote this a couple of days ago. It's still in the works, but you let me know what you think about it. So
absolutely.
Everything, I'm gonna go into it. So everything happens for a reason, and what transpires is what you happen to believe in. In other words, that's the law of attraction. Thoughts become words, and words become action. Satisfaction in a world full of desires. You want happiness, but do you do what is required? How many people have you inspired? How many deeds have you acquired? That's halfway through. I'll finish it on the next podcast. But yeah, man, it's I had a beautiful time. If anyone wants to find me, you know, we didn't talk too much about it, but I have a lot of charitable works in progress. So you can find me at Mirza Saab _Saab. That's Mirza MIRZA_SAAB. I'm gonna have a lot of projects with regards to homelessness and how we can tackle homelessness. I've had a couple of my boys including myself. We've been feeding, we've been clothing a lot of homeless people in Toronto and in the Cambridge area. So alhamdulillah, that's all Allah's blessing for us, and we intend to make this on a larger scale an organization. And we're growing. We have a lot of content. I'll show you some content of mine, just private. It's not public yet, but I'll show you some of my content. And yeah, we can go from there. Hopefully, I can get some people to sponsor monthly donations. It's going towards an amazing cause. Surprisingly, man, even in a country like Canada, there's a lot of homelessness. People who don't have food to eat. We have really cold winters, man. I don't know if you know about this, but like extremely cold winters, and people have no jackets. People die every winter from a lack of clothing and lack of food. In such a diverse city, there's people dying on the streets today. So that's a whole other issue. Maybe I'll come back some other time promoting this what I have going on. But again, man, appreciate the time. It's really beautiful speaking to you. Like I said, you're doing it right. You got the right energy, and just nothing but love from my end over here.
Shukran. Now, the feeling is absolutely mutual, and if applicable, we will leave some of the links to donate to Brother Arslan's projects in the description below, inshallah, if they've been made public. So I've always got inshallah a launch good. I don't know if people notice, but on the YouTube video description, even on the Facebook, there's always a launch good thing there, because season 3 started during Ramadan. So I said, instead of donating to my Patreon, just donate to Launch Good instead. But I never really took that Launch Good thing away. So if people wanted to be directed to a charitable cause, they would always have that option. So I think for this episode, inshallah, if the link is live, then we can definitely put a link to your charitable options right there, so that people can directly donate to that. And I know we were supposed to close off, bro, but talking about this charitable thing just gave me one extra question. On a long-term solution, what do you think needs to happen for us to eradicate not only homelessness, but charity as well? Why am I saying charity? Because another person I follow online, his name is Osama Zainul Abidin. He's very active. He's a friend of Momadou as well. Very active in the charitable sphere. And he's in Lebanon right now, if I'm not mistaken, helping refugees there. So part of the charity that he works for, their motto, or what he was saying, is that he wants to get that charity to a stage where we create a world where charities are not even needed anymore, because there are no more homeless people, there are no more refugees, there are no more people going hungry for absolutely ridiculous reasons. So for us to reach that dream, that goal, what do you think needs to be done?
Okay, so by no means am I a professional in this field, but I can give my 2 cents. Funny enough, last week I was visiting, there was this food bank down in a city called Mississauga. The reason why I went there was because I had leftover packets of meals. So generally, me and my buddies, we go out, we give meals to homeless people we see on the street. So we had leftovers. We had about 20 bags left over, and it was getting late. So I'm like, I don't know, where should I take this food? So I checked Google quickly, which food bank is open. I went to this food bank. It's called Seva Food Bank, by the way. I believe it's called Seva Foundation or Seva Food Bank. It's run by some amazing people. So we went there, we dropped off the food. They were very glad that we had the food. They're really appreciative. So I was speaking to one of the owners of this place. And I'm like, you guys are doing amazing work, right? I'm like, and I said, I hope you guys grow. I hope you, like, this is running such a smooth operation. I'm like, I hope in the future you guys can have more locations, maybe in that city, maybe in that city. And to like what you were saying, the response I got was, they're like, no, that's the exact opposite of what I want. He's like, I would be extremely happy if this food bank went bankrupt. If this were to close down, that's what would make me happy. Because this need, like, why are there people still hungry? Like, are we not a first world nation? Like, what? It doesn't make sense, So what can we do on a macro scale? I mean, I don't know if I have the answers for that, but on a micro scale, just on an individual level, I know, just do what you can to help, right? That's all you can do. Do what you can to help. We know it. We know there's people on the streets that don't have jackets. What are you doing to help out? Right? So that's why me and my buddies, we took the initiative. We've been collecting jackets, hats, scarves, gloves, blankets, and we've been handing them out. That's the only way you can do it, is to get up and do it. That's the only way you're going to see change. Hopefully, man, inshallah. Like on a political level, I'm not too much into politics. What can I say? Right? I don't have an answer that way. I just have on a human level, I can say, you see someone in need, take the initiative, go and help out. Right? And it's not only giving food. Like I'm speaking to a lot of these people, and I'm realizing, man, a lot of these people, they don't want to be in this situation. They're dealing with stuff. So kind, man. Honestly, so some of these people are so kind, so respectful, extremely grateful. There's a few incidents I could tell you where we've given food to people. I've given them bags of food, and I see the homeless person who's wearing raggedy clothes, who seems, they told me I haven't eaten in 2 days. They're hungry. They'll take one bag. The other bags, they'd go and they'd distribute it to the other people. You know, they're such kind souls, man. So my message is, you just gotta spread love. You gotta do what you can, and Allah helps you, man. You try to do something good, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala helps you. He directs you. He makes sure it runs smoothly, and he elevates you. He elevates you in your cause. So yeah, man, that's my response, man. Just do what you can.
SubhanAllah, I think it's a very beautiful response. Having that human connection or that human characteristic of empathy, love for your fellow man, love for your neighbor, and always doing your best to extend a hand, for the hand that gives is better than the hand that receives. Ladies, gentlemen, brothers, sisters, it's been an absolute blast here, and the scholar and the student talking to our brother from Canada, brother Arslan Mirza. Bro, we know we have welcomed you into our country virtually, but you got to come here physically now that lockdown's over. Inshallah, you've got my full extension, my invitation. Please do come visit us one day, inshallah. It's a complete 360 away from all that snow and stuff. Here it's like, okay, we can go to the desert if you want to, but there's plenty of other things besides that. And
Absolutely.
with the amount of people I've had from Canada, I think inshallah I'll have to come visit you lot up there as well, inshallah, sometime
Absolutely,
in the future.
man. Absolutely.
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah, man. Goes both ways, bro. I'll come to Botswana. You come to Botswana one day, inshallah.
Absolutely. I've got to go meet Imam Madhar, who's been on my podcast as well. I've got to go meet Dr. Sayyid, and yeah, all those people, inshallah. So it's all love, brother. It's all love from us in Botswana, and it's all love to and from the audience as well. So alhamdulillah, it's been such an awesome session. There's always an awesome session, but I hope we can keep the energy going. Before we sign off, I'll show you a picture, inshallah, on Instagram. But bro, one of my friends looks exactly like you. I'm not even joking. Yeah. You're an absolute doppelganger.
Honestly, man, whoever I speak to, there's always someone who looks exactly like me. I don't know what it is, man.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's the common human gene or whatever, man, some genetic theory over there. But yeah, it's been an absolute blast. So to the brothers, the sisters, the viewers, the listeners who are tuning in, and to Brother Arslan all the way in Canada, from me here in Gaborone, Botswana, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace out, brother. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much for seeing this through to the end. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating if you're using an audio platform. All of these things drive up the algorithm, as well as commenting, so let us know how it was for you. A special shout out once again to our sponsors, Alpha House of Fashion, Baseline Media Intellects, and Batch by ZAHRA. The Ko-fi and Patreon links for donations are live and down below. Remember to donate only if you have the means to do so. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum, peace.